Good evening, and thank you all for joining us today. My name is Rashmita, and I'm the event planner for Microsoft Reactor India. Today, I'm here joined by our very own host, Vivek, and of course, our special guest speaker, Tulika and Aditya. But before we start today's session, I would request you all to read our code of conduct. We are all here together to learn, so please be respectful of other people's views, understanding of differences, being kind and considerate in the way you engage. The chat section is open throughout, and we do encourage you all to participate. With this, we also have our build event coming up. So the date is from 23rd to 25th. So I would request you all to please register for the build. The registration link is aka.ms/build. You will get to learn a lot about Microsoft. So I would highly recommend you all to please register for build. And with this, I would now request our first speaker, Tulika, to come and begin the session. Thank you all once again and enjoy the session.
Thank you, Rashmita. Good evening, everybody. My name is Tulika. I'm a product manager with Linux App Service. Can we change? Oh, okay. We're good. Hybrid is really confusing. I forget which screen I'm looking at. So I'm a product manager with Linux App Services at the India Development Center. We have our offices over here in Bangalore as well as in Hyderabad. So I'm going to start with my session today is modernizing apps with Azure PaaS. And Azure PaaS is a whole plethora of services. So I'm not going to, it's impossible to cover it in a single session. What I'm going to try and do is, talk through a couple of services, talk through what is a modern app, first of all, why do you need to modernize, and then show you a couple of services that I work on. So that's the basic agenda for today. I just have 5 or 6 slides, and then we'll just look at some demos. Now, because Parth has very kindly provided me some gifts and goodies to give away, we can start with some questions. First of all, since this is very close to my heart, have any of you used Azure App Service and can tell me what is Azure App Service? Even if you haven't used the service, heard about it. And if nobody answers, I get the goodie, right? Anyone? Okay. Yes.
So, ma'am, basically, first of all, good evening, everyone. My name is Deep. And basically, Azure is a cloud service provided by the Microsoft. And in this Azure cloud service, there are many of the apps which are already provided by the Microsoft. For example, if we take the example of SharePoint. So SharePoint is the biggest example of the Azure service only. So actually, Azure is being used in the by the different companies for managing their HR portals. So this one.
So do you know specifically about app service?
Not that much, but yeah, I have some ideas about what is Azure, how it works,
I see.
and how to create the apps over the SharePoint.
Okay.
And how we deploy it.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes, so Azure App Service is a service in Azure where you can deploy your app as a static page or as your code or as container.
Okay. Okay. So that is the correct answer. So he explained what is Azure pretty well, but App Service is our PaaS offering, where we, as he said, that we could have a static web app, we could have bring your own code or bring your own container. We'll have more questions, so you'll have more chances going forward. So first of all, one of the things, so when I said that I work with Azure Application Platform or Azure App Service, we come under the stream of modern apps. And modern apps is something very important to Microsoft at the moment. A lot of companies are looking to modernizing their IT departments, modernizing their existing apps, and making sure that they can run on the cloud. So there is quite a bit of need for modernization as well. One of the needs is a competitive disruption. There are companies which have to modernize, otherwise they will lose market because there are other people in the market who are way ahead of them, and they have to, just to compete with them, they have to modernize. There's also an industry regulation. So I don't know if you've heard about, there are things like FedRAMP certification, there are things like, medical, they need particular certification for you to store data. And for individuals or for companies, it's very hard to get the certification and have all the things you need to run those applications. There's also a need to tap to new business opportunities. So if you have a modern app which is in the cloud and you don't have to worry about infrastructure costs, if you don't have to worry about anything else which is happening, you can focus more on productivity, which means that you can now have more business opportunities and not worry about how exactly it's going to be implemented, who is going to manage it. So that's another thing. Reduce some of the technical debt. So what happens is, and if you ever work in IT, there are two classifications when we try to do our backlog scanning. There are two classifications of features we have. One is what is features what we have to design. But the second is technical debt, which means that these are things which is needed for the service to run, except that we haven't done it for a long time. So it's just debt which keeps on accumulating. And at some point of time, you have to fulfill the debt. Otherwise, your service will stop working. And finally, optimize cost. When I say optimize cost, it's mainly the hardware cost, but also the people cost of running hardware at your end. If you put it on the cloud, obviously, you can save that kind of cost in labor as well. I won't say exactly save. You will have those people doing more productive tasks rather than worrying about, I need to get a new hard disk for my server, and I need to make sure my server is patched and updated. So they can do more specialized functions rather than worrying about things like this. So there is an immense need for modernizations in different businesses. And we regularly talk to customers about how do they go about doing the modernization. It sounds quite simple, but it's really, really complex. A large organization which has been running for years will have so many legacy apps that they are now going to try and move to the cloud. And though we would like to say that you can lift and shift, and in the ideal world, that's what should happen, but that's not really what happens. What happens is that you can lift and shift something, you might have to redesign something, you might have to change something to be able to use it, and so on. So modernization is never a single line that you can draw, that you have an app, you go and move it on the cloud, and you're done. That never ever works. So I'm over here. Now, again, you have various strategies for modernization. You could, of course, just migrate your apps to infrastructure as a service or IaaS. That's the simplest option. That's the lift and shift I was talking about. You have an app which is running on premise on the server sitting under your desk. You can just go ahead and create a subscription on a cloud provider of your choice, in this case, Azure, and you can just deploy it onto a VM in the cloud. For some applications, that works. There's nothing absolutely wrong with it. But are you really modernizing your app in the true sense? What you're doing is you're taking an app which was already running. You're now running it not on the server sitting under your desk, but running it in the cloud. That's not really modernizing. It's not bad. In some cases, that's what you need to do. But that's not exactly modernization. The second option is, you do the modernization and you use a PaaS offering. PaaS stands for Platform as a Service. So Platform as a Service, what it basically means is you just bring your own code and we will manage the platform for you. When we say platform, we are talking about everything underlying runs on a VM. So we will manage the VM for you. We will provision the VM, we'll monitor the health of the VM, we'll update the VM whenever it needs to be updated, we'll patch the VM. If a VM is unhealthy, we will restart the VM. So all those operations are managed by us. you as the developer only concentrate on your code. So you get your code, you give us your code, we will run it for you. That's our assurance for PaaS. So that's one way of modernizing. There's another way of which is called replacing. And replacing is generally done by software as a service. So when he mentioned SharePoint, so SharePoint is basically you might be having an internal portal which you are using, but now you want to just replace it with something completely different, which is automatically managed for you. And when you choose an option like this, you are probably giving away control. So you're probably saying, oh, you manage it for us, but you're increasing productivity. And it's always a choice. Which one do you want to manage? Are you the kind of, is your app such that if a particular Ubuntu version changes, if it breaks, and you want to control when we update the Ubuntu version? In that case, maybe you should, install it on a VM, because that's where you have the most control. But if you don't want to worry about things, and in the ideal case, you should not need to worry about an OS changing, an OS being patched. In that case, you can go for the PaaS or the SaaS options. We also have certain cases where none of these work. So you have to stay on-premise. This could be because your data might be sensitive. You don't want to add it to the cloud. You want to, you have some kind of regulations so that the data, there could be things like a lot of companies have data which needs to reside within geographical boundaries. So because in the cloud, you are having it in a data center somewhere else, and you can't have that. For example, the Indian government might say that I want the data only in India, and I cannot have the data stored in some other country. So in that case, you might want to stay on premise, but that doesn't mean that you cannot cloud connect your data or your application. So you could have the data residing in on-premise on the server in your data center, but you can connect it to the cloud so that now it can interact with applications on the cloud itself. So while we're looking at the cloud or app migration and modernization approach, we have another question. And so a term that you probably have heard about a lot, it is called a cloud native developer. Have you heard the term? A cloud native developer. What do you think is a cloud native developer? Who is a cloud native developer? Does he have special characteristics, or is any developer? And now, because we are in the cloud, we are cloud native. Yes.
Maybe that person manages the storage and the security of the contents there for the cloud.
He manages the storage and security. Okay, that's partly true. But a little more, I'm looking for, yes.
Develops and optimizes the apps for cloud.
Okay. Again, quite close. Just looking for a few of one thing more. Anyone?
Does your app completely on the cloud itself?
Yes. So these are applications which are, a cloud native developer is the developer who develops for the cloud. Sorry. Which means that our traditional developer has been the one who will develop locally. Right? So that's how we've been used to development. So we do development locally, we test it locally, and then when we are satisfied, we go and shift it to the cloud. A cloud native developer starts development thinking about cloud. So he starts developing thinking that I am going to use the cloud, and that's where I reside. And he'll automatically start thinking about what is needed for an application to run in the cloud. And that's called a cloud native developer or a cloud first developer. I think his answer was the closest, and he can. So a lot of their cloud, now we have, again, two kinds of audience. One is the cloud native developer, and the second is the person who has developed traditionally using on-premise technologies and now wants to lift and shift to the cloud. And Azure will let you do both. So since you answered what is a cloud native developer, what are some of the technologies do you think, a cloud native developer will typically think about? Yes.
Linux.
Linux. But see, Linux, people used to think about earlier as well. For cloud native specifically, Docker. Yes. Now, since all of you answered and didn't actually, I don't know who we can give the gift to. Okay, so something for, we will remember him and him.
Okay. Yeah. Please raise your hand.
Oh, I'm sorry. We should have something for the online audience who's also answering questions. So with Azure PaaS or Platform as a Service, we try to have options for all of these things that we want to do. So first is the simplest option, application migration. You have an application which is running on premise. We have tools and frameworks which are called Azure Migrate, which basically first it will go ahead and scan your application and tell you if it's ready for the cloud. If it's ready for the cloud, then it will help you in deploying to the cloud. Again, I want to emphasize over here, it's impossible to create a tool which can just do one click and deploy to the cloud. That doesn't work in real life. So it'll be an iterative process where you'll identify that there are some problems, then you'll go and fix the problems or make changes, and then you'll move to the cloud. And then we have these set of tools which are available to modernize your .NET apps, your Java apps, to streamline your app workflow and do some kind of an integration. Again, in the real world, when you're going to deploy an application, you're not going to just simply use one service. You will need to interact with other services. A real life application is never ever just going to be a web app. It's going to be something in the back end which is going to work. It needs to talk to a database. You might want to talk to some kind of service bus, some kind of like Hadoop mentioned, AI ML, which is the hottest topic today. So all of that needs integration. And with Azure PaaS, that's what we are trying to do. So we start with app service, which is your basic thing where you can deploy your apps. App service is meant for web apps. So if you have a web portal, and most applications that you put on the cloud will have some kind of a web portal. So you can use Azure App Service. If your application is already maybe running in a container locally, in that case, maybe you just want to bring your container to the cloud. And if that's the case, we have an offering called the Azure Container Apps, where you can just take your container and bring it to the cloud. And then if you are more specialized and want to do microservices, in that case, we have the Kubernetes service or AKS, where you can now have your microservice running within the cloud itself. I'll continue. Okay. So, another question now. So somebody mentioned a cloud native developer uses containers. What is a container?
Container stores your information and then keeps in the cloud.
But why do we need the container for it? We can store it in a SQL database. So why do we need container? What does
From container is an environment we can fully run an application. It has all the required data. Things to run an application.
Do you have a boss?
Container is something wherein we package all the code and the related dependencies and then create an image. And the image, when it is in runtime, it is not running.
That was the most technical answer, so we'll give a gift to her. So Docker is basically a trade name. So Docker is one way to run a container. That's not the only way, of course. A container is, for a longest time, the problem that developers had and I'm sure you're going to face the problem when you start working, is my code runs on my box, does not run it when I deploy it somewhere else. And that somewhere else need not be the cloud, by the way. It could work on your box over here and does not work in the box over there. And that has been a traditional problem. And that's what containers are trying to solve. What container is doing is it is packaging your code, your dependencies, but also what is needed for the OS itself into a single thing, which is called an image. And that image, when it runs, is a container. So you have the container apps where if you've created an image which works like this on your local box, you can just put it in the cloud and that will run for you. It doesn't matter what we are running behind, what version of Ubuntu we are using, what kind of VM we are using. It doesn't matter because your container has all the dependencies it needs to run. So now let's go ahead and we're going to look a little bit about Azure App Service. This is a fully managed platform for web applications and web APIs. Typically, most applications that you will be creating in the cloud will have some kind of web kind of an interface. It could be a host for APIs that you're using. It could be a front end where customers can go and, I don't know, place orders, have a shopping cart. So you will have some kind of an interface for web. And often for an application, that's the entry point into your application because that's the place where your customers are interacting with your application. So we look at Azure App Service, which is a fully managed platform for web applications and web APIs. We have some specialized workloads. So for example, if you want to run a WordPress app, we have specialized workloads for WordPress apps. But if you don't want to do that, we also have options like bring your own code. Whatever your code is, we will just run it for you. So that's one option. The second is Azure Functions. Now, this is another buzzword that you must have heard about, and that's called serverless. So we'll look a little bit about serverless going further. But anyways, these are the two things that I'm going to be covering in today's talk. So let's now go to the Azure portal. So this is the Azure portal. It is portal.azure.com. I'm using the internal version. That's why you see the ms.portal.azure.com. The internal version is mainly when we have some preview features and we want to test. But for you, portal.azure.com should work. You should be able to create a subscription, and I forget how many credits you get as soon as you create a subscription. So you should be able to try out most of the services over here. So firstly, I said I'm going to start with App Service. So App Service, you can first go ahead and create a resource. Can you see my screen at the back? Okay. So over here, if you scroll down, you get some of the, we have a lot of categories out here, depending on what service you want to create. But since we are talking about app service, web app is right at the top. It's the second most used service in Azure. The first one is VMs, and the second one is web app. So we can go on to the Create Blade. So over here, we ask you some common things. For example, we'll ask you what is the subscription you created. If you just have one subscription, it'll obviously not be a drop-down. I'm part of multiple subscriptions, so we see a drop-down. We have something called a resource group. A resource group is nothing but a collection of resources. Again, when you create an application, it will never, ever be in isolation. It will have certain things which it interacts with. So the resource group is the logical collection of all the resources. So in this case, we can create a new one. We can specify the name of the app, and this name should be unique, because what we are doing underneath is that with that name, we are doing a DNS binding for you. So your name, whatever name you give, .azurewebsites.net is a new DNS that we'll create for you. Now, here are the three options that I was talking about. One is bring your own code. So bring your own code is, you have an application, a Go application, works at your end. You just want to give me the code and you say, go Azure, go figure it out and run it yourself. If that's the case, and that's the simplest scenario. So if that's the case that you want to do, you can just say, bring your own code, and you can choose what is the language that the code is written in, so that we can understand how to start up the code. And you can see that we have most of the common languages over here together with the versions of the language. So there's .NET, there's Go, there's Java, there's Python and PHP. So most of the common languages and versions are covered here. We only have support for the LTS versions. So typically a language or a framework will have two versions. One is LTS, which is long time support, and the second is STS, which is short time support. So we generally have everything for the long time support. And in few cases, for example, .NET, we'll have the short time support also. So you can choose a language over here. So let me go ahead and choose, I don't know. It will let you specify the region where you want to deploy it. And this defines the data center that you want to be in. And as I was mentioning earlier, there will be companies which have legal requirements that you cannot cross the geographical boundaries. So in that case, you probably, like if it's India, we do have data centers in India, for example, in Chennai. So if you want to deploy it within the geographical boundaries, you probably want to choose a data center like India. You also have a choice of operating system. So in this case, Windows is grayed out because we don't have Go running on Windows. But you can choose what is the base OS of the VM that is going to be created for you. Again, it shouldn't matter, ideally. So if your Go application, your Python application, your PHP application is working on your box, most of these applications are self-contained, which means that ideally, if you push it onto the cloud, it should work on whatever OS it is. So if I choose, instead of Go, for example, if I choose .NET, you can see that we have both the options enabled because we can run .NET on Linux and Windows. So you can choose what OS you want. I will go back to Go for the moment. The next important thing is, and of course this is, for all customers, this would be a major thing, is determine what is the pricing plan. And you will see that we have various, I'm going to just say new. If you have, a new pricing plan, you can explore the different pricing options. So we allow you to run your application in the kind of VM that you need. And a lot of times what we found is we do have a free tier, by the way. So if you want, you can run your application on the free tier. There are some limitations on the free tier. For example, the CPU usage can only be 60 minutes a day and so on. But if you are just doing dev test, what we recommend is use the basic tier. The basic tier allows you to, check how things are working in the cloud, and you can always upgrade if you find that you have too many requests or the basic tier does not work for you. So we have that. And this is zone redundancy. You don't have to worry about it at this point. This is basically, we define reliability zones. So if one of the zones goes down to another region, we'll have a backup in a different region, and that region will get online. So you can configure zone redundancy for your application. You don't always have to do it, but this is one of the advantages of doing it in the cloud. I mean, just imagine if you had an application running locally and your server fails due to any reason. There is no redundancy plan. So we can go over here. I'm not going to go through the entire flow. I'm just going to mention over here that you can now configure deployment. So right now, the first blade was creating your application. Right? So we specified what is needed to create your application. The next blade over here is, how do you deploy the code? Because we were doing bring your own code. So this blade defines where does your code residing. It could be residing in GitHub, for example. It could be residing in Bitbucket. It actually could be residing in a zip file locally on your box. And we have options in which you can push the zip onto over here. We'll extract the zip and run it for you. Internally, because we've chosen Linux to be our VM size or the kind of VM, everything is going to run automatically as a Docker container. So everything, all the code that you're getting, we will internally unzip the code, manage the code, create an image for you, create a container for you, start it up for you. But again, because you're in a PaaS, you don't have to worry about it. You don't have to, even know that it is running in a container. As far as you're concerned, just look at your code and that's what you're running. So I'm not exactly going to create an app service plan, and I'm doing really bad on time, aren't I? So I'm not going to create an app. I'm just going to go ahead, and I've got some app creator. This is a Go app, so I was going through the Go flow over here. So when you look at the app, you can see that I created this app. It shows that the runtime stack is Go. It shows that this is the domain name. And once the domain name is there, I can just click on the browse button. And you can see over here, I've deployed some code to it. And basically, it's not much. But I can just say, and that's just going to change the message. So a very simple app, which I went and deployed. We do have a quick start on how to create a Go application. And Rashmita, we might be able to share it on the chat later on, right? So we'll share the links for it so you can go and create a Go app and see how it works. So that was one thing. The other thing I promised is that real quick, we can do what is a function app. So we get on to creating a function app. And if you see the create blade over here, now why do you need function apps? So web app, we define what is a web app. It is a web portal. So it allows people to create a front end, if you will, for your application. A function app is more of a data-driven application. So what if you want to react to certain events? You want to react to an entry being added in the database. You want to react to an order being placed, and then you want to do the logistics for the order, like the order processing and the delivery and so on. So function app is an app which is defined to do things based on events. So it doesn't have like a front end. It has like like an API. And what you do over there is you send it triggers. So you can define what your trigger is. Your trigger could be something like I'm adding an entry to Cosmos DB and you want it to react. Your trigger could be I have a message queue and when an email comes in, I want to take some action. In that case, those are things that you can do in a function app. So function app create experience is going to be very similar to what we talked about. As you say, we have the code container, you can do Linux, Windows. Now, but function apps has something called serverless as well as dedicated. Don't worry about the premium, but there are two main options, serverless and dedicated plans. So again, serverless must be a term that I think you should have heard. Yes. So somebody can define serverless? Yeah.
Servlets are actually in the Java programming language.
No, serverless. Sorry.
Serverless.
Serverless. So this is
Serverless or servlets?
no serverless.
It's actually a misnomer. Like actually, server is being used, but it's actually on demand. So whenever for an application some required amount of demand, then it automatically scales up and down. And in dedicated, we use like a dedicated amount of hardware.
Correct.
Another name for cloud.
So no, it's a little different. So, but he gave the right answer. Parth, can we give him a? So serverless is basically we have a model which is consume as you go. That's the model. So if you have no requests, if you have no triggers which are fighting, in that case, it's not even running. You are not being charged. It's not running. Nothing is happening. If you start getting triggers which are happening, we allocate VMs to you, and then automatically those VMs will start processing whatever request was sent and how you've set it up. The difference between cloud in general and serverless is when you create an app service, for example, that was the cloud, we allocate a dedicated VM to you. So which means if your web app is not getting any request at all, it's just sitting there, your VM is still with you and you will be charged for your VM because that's in your name. We've allocated and dedicated that VM to you. But serverless basically means is that I'm not going to dedicate anything to you till you actually get some requests. And ideally, that's what should happen. But so then the question is, why don't we have everything as serverless? Why do we even have a dedicated option? We could have everything as serverless, right? It would make sense. You would save costs. And the reason for that is that when we say serverless, we are going to create at runtime. We are going to create a VM for you. We are going to let the traffic flow to that VM, and that's going to take some time, obviously. Right? I'm going to provision a new VM for you. I'm going to associate it with your app. I'm now going to send the request to it, and it's going to take some time. Is your application okay to wait for that time? Or do you want, my VM to be pre-warmed and sitting there waiting for requests? Depends on what kind of application it is. Right? If you have a mission-critical application, you probably can't wait 30 seconds for the VM to be allocated to you. You might, lose something. You might be losing revenue based on that. So that is why we have the dedicated option as well. So you can do serverless if you want to, but you can, if you're okay to wait. If you have a long-running task that you don't care when it finishes, as long as it finishes at some point of time, so then go for the serverless. But if you have a task which needs to be done right now, as soon as it triggers, in that case, a dedicated option is better for you. So based on that, you can now create your function app. We provide all these other blades for you. You don't need to go over here. You just need to hit the create button, and that will automatically create a function app for you. I'm not going to, again, create it over here. You just have to take my word that will create the function app. But what I'm going to do over here is define a function within a function app. So once you've created a function app is a collection of functions. So we'll go ahead and create a function within the function app. So we are over here, and inside the function app, which we just created, we can go over here in the functions blade. And a function app can be a collection of multiple functions. I'm sorry, I'm not looking here. I'm not looking at that screen, sorry. Yeah, please. Other than the pricing questions, which I don't know.
Okay.
So we can create a function app over here. And the good thing about a function app is that, you can write the code right in the portal itself. So you see over here that we can create, now we are going to define our function. We are going to say what it's going to do. And we can say the develop environment, we can develop right in the portal. You have other options too. You can use VS Code, you can use any kind of editor if you want to, but you can do it right in the portal. And that's what we are going to do for simplicity's sake. You can also define what kind of trigger do you want your function app to be triggered on. So in this case, you can see that we have various triggers, like the HTTP trigger, the timer trigger, the Azure Service Bus, queue, blob. These various triggers are there. You can define what you want. And the purpose of defining is we'll define the templated code for you. So you don't have to figure out how do I read a HTTP trigger. We'll write the code for you. You just concentrate on your productivity. And really, that is what PaaS is about. We want to make sure that you concentrate on your own productivity and not worry about all these other things which is needed to manage. So for the moment, I'm going to choose HTTP. And I'm going to change one thing. So over here, it's asking me what should be the name of the function. Function app, again, as I said, is a collection of functions. This is the name of the function. So it's giving it a name. I'm going to let it be. It's asking me what is the authorization level. Do you want anybody to access the function, or do you want to set some kind of permission or authorization? I am going to set it to anonymous for the moment, and we'll just say create. So it's going ahead and creating your function. So it's automatically created an HTTP trigger function for you. I can go over here and see, because remember we chose our development environment develop on the portal. So I can go over here and say code and test right on the portal itself. Again, you don't need to do that. You can do it in any editor of your choice. Here I'm using .NET, so we are limited to VS Code and Visual Studio. But if you were using an IDE of your choice, you can absolutely use that. So you can see over here that it has created a template. This is what I was mentioning is the templated code for you. So it's already created the templated code. Your HTTP trigger at this point is ready. All that you need to do to run it is just get the URL over here, and it's telling you this is the URL. And I can go ahead and run it. And you can see that, it's run the function app automatically for you. I can add a query string, I don't know. And it'll go ahead and execute the function app for you. So again, this is what PaaS is all about. We are giving you the maximum amount of productivity to make sure that you just concentrate on your code. Now, you have to obviously define what is going to happen on the HTTP trigger. But you don't have to worry about the template and how does it get triggered and when does it get triggered and any kind of monitoring. That's something which is done in the background. And again, whether you want this model or whether you want complete control is up to you or up to the needs of your application. So if you want it, what you can't see over here is what is the VM which is running this function app? What is the OS on the VM that is running the function app? You don't have access to it. But do you need access is the question. Do you need to actually go and look at the VM and find out things from it? You might need, I don't know. You might need to have access to specific locations on the VM, specific paths on the VM. You might need to go and monitor things on the VM itself. You might have some requirements where you want particular security scans to run on the VM. We automatically do security scans on the VMs for you. But if you have some specific requirements for your organization, absolutely, go run it on a VM. But if that's not your requirement, then PaaS is one of the things to go. So I went really quick. This is some documentation, and I'll make sure that we share the links across. This is an introduction to functions. The programming model is really cool, so I would encourage you to go and look at it. Functions is the way forward because even though web is ubiquitous, everything needs a web portal, but event-driven programming is where the world is going towards. So that's another thing that you should look at. This is, like how do you create the bindings? So we have some documentation over here, and this is not needed. And this allows you to create a simple Azure function using C#. I use the portal directly to create the function. If you have to do more complex tasks, it's harder to do it on the portal because it's a limited IDE. It doesn't give you. We do have some IntelliSense on the portal, so if you do dot, you'll probably get something. But it isn't the full IntelliSense that you would get on Visual Studio, VS Code, or any other IDE. So if you want a full-fledged development environment, you'll have to use one of the IDEs which is listed over here. You probably also need the SDKs for it, but then you can create your own function app. So I'm almost done. This is where you can, find out about the latest products and features that we have. We have our Twitter handle called AZ App Service. So in case you're on Twitter, you can follow us on Twitter where we'll be posting our regular updates. And you can learn about the product information over here. Do we share PPT? Okay. So at least we can share this slide. So you'll have the links handy. And that's what the Azure advantage is. You reduce costs, you can operate confidently, and you can innovate faster because we are making sure you concentrate on your code. That is all I had. And what have I missed? Mm-hmm. Okay. So we have 1 or 2 questions online, and we have some questions here also. Okay. Let me go online first, and I'll come to you. Yes, we can create custom functions as well. So we have an option, just as I was showing. So the question is, can we create custom functions? And we absolutely can. We automatically generate the templated code for you when you choose one of the trigger options. But if you don't choose the trigger option, we have an option for a custom function where you can define whatever you want to do. Why would you need a custom function? Some of the commentars that I can think of is maybe you just have a long-running scheduler task. It's not based on any trigger. It just sits there in the background. Maybe what you're doing is scanning your Twitter feed and coming up with tweets which are interesting for you. So those are long-running tasks and has nothing to do with triggers. And that case needs a custom function, and you can absolutely have it. Next question. I can.
So there is a question equivalent to AWS.
Yes. So the Azure Functions is equivalent to the AWS Lambda. If that's what you've used, it uses similar kind of a technology. And does the function app, so another question is, does the function app work with app service? Yes, those are the scenarios that we want to enable. What we want to enable is that you could have a web app which adds an entry into the database. And I'm just taking a hypothetical. Let's say you have a web app which has order. It's customers can go and place order. So they go and place an order. As soon as the order is placed, a database entry is created corresponding to the order. And the function app can go and now figure out a database entry is, and I have to send an email to the customer saying you've successfully placed the order. I have to, do the work to dispatch the order. And that could be what the function app does. So it absolutely, that's why we covered these 2 services, because it makes sense for most applications to have them together. Which one? Okay. We had one question here. Yes, sir.
Hi, my name is Vedant. My question would be, you had mentioned that every application, the web application, is Dockerized in the Linux or Windows environment.
In the Linux, sorry.
In the Linux environment.
Yes.
So in the Linux environment, since it's Dockerized, will I be required to create a Docker file or a Docker build file while using a platform, or will it automatically create a Docker file?
Okay. That's a good question. So.
Can you just repeat the question?
Oh, okay. Sorry. The question is that since I mentioned that everything runs as Docker on a Linux environment, so if you're deploying your code, do you need to create a Docker file? And the answer is no, you don't need to. We will automatically. So what we have 2 kinds of images within our system internally. One is what we, say pre-built images. So let's say you choose a Python 3.10. That's your language stack. So we already have a Docker file corresponding to Python 3.10. And as soon as you choose Python 3.10, we will put a Docker file there on the VM for you so that it can create the container. And we will take the code that you deploy and run it against the Docker file that is already pre-built. So that's one option. But if that's something that you don't like for whatever reason, so you could, be using Docker 3.6, let's say. and we don't have Docker 3.6 in our environment. In that case, you can now create a Docker file, and you can say, this is my code, this is where my Docker file, and do all the container good stuff. This is my port on which I'm going to run. This is my shared volume, which is all needed for running a container. You can specify that, and you can get us that Docker file. And then we will use that Docker file and create the app for you. So we have both the options.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. I'm sorry, Aditya, I took more time than I said I would.
That's totally all right.
And now we have Aditya.
Yeah. Good to go. All right.
Just say hi.
Hi everyone. Lots of people here, by the way. I'm not used to seeing so many in the reactor, but it's always good to have many. Like, I think we have this policy with any community events, and that is the more the merrier. So good to see everyone here. Great. Now I'm actually nervous now, but hopefully we'll survive through this. Now, just a little disclaimer, I have just recovered from a little bit of a throat infection. So if my voice gets a little sore or something in the middle, please do bear with me. And in case anyone isn't able to hear me clearly, just raise your hand and I'll repeat myself. Secondly, any questions that we have, we'll take after the presentation. All right. So keep them prepared with you. That's always something to be appreciated, but we'll take them in the end. All right. Sounds good? Perfect. So today I'm going to be talking about an application I built last weekend, actually, as a little mini project of mine that I've tried to cater towards helping solve problems around accessibility. Um, so, first question, does anyone know what accessibility is? You can just raise your hands. Oh, a lot of people don't understand it yet. That's perfect. That makes life easier for me. No, good. That means I can just share what I want and it'll be easier for me to get the message through. Kidding. But yeah, it's good that we have a lot of people who are still new to understanding what problems around accessibility are. And if we have a few people who understand, that's amazing. Because accessibility is especially a major challenge that we are dealing with, whether it's on the virtual front, whether it's in the real world. So any steps we can take to improve accessibility for people all across are always appreciated. Yeah, so that's what we'll be talking about just as we proceed further with this presentation today. I was just getting to that. Thank you so much, Parth sir. So yeah, I am Aditya Oberai. I am currently a developer advocate at AppWrite, which is an open source backend as a service platform. I am also a Microsoft MVP for the developer technologies category. I have been active around tech communities, student communities, hackathons for the last 4 years or so now. Especially having worked with programs such as the Microsoft Learn Student Ambassadors, such as the MLH coaches. And I am really happy to be here with all of you today to talk about some of these challenges. Some of my favorite technologies include .NET, um, Azure, of course, and within Azure, particularly some of the PaaS offerings, like I believe Tulika shared about earlier, like Azure Functions, but also cognitive services, which happens to be one of my favorites otherwise as well. And I'm going to be taking one of these technologies that I've mentioned already, that is cognitive services, and a new one I've been learning, that is JavaScript, with people today. I can imagine there's already a lot of love for JavaScript considering that reaction, isn't it? All right, I think this is, yeah, I guess it'll be fun after this. Now, as far as my agenda for this talk goes, what I'm going to be talking about is, of course, what web accessibility is. We'll further on delve into what alt text is, because this particular app that I built is focused around helping generate alt text. And then I'll, of course, showcase my solution, what it is, and how I built it. Now, the first question that we have here is, what is web accessibility? Now, I did ask a little earlier, and we had a few hands raised around, folks who understood what accessibility is. Now, if I have to talk about it, if I had to define it, web accessibility would mean websites, tools, technologies that are designed and developed so that people with disabilities, folks who are differently enabled, can use them and utilize them just as well as anyone else. And when we talk about these, we are specifically referring to cognitive abilities, being able to perceive, understand, navigate, interact. And we do mention the web here because web accessibility in itself is a massive forum. In fact, one of the biggest platforms that actually innovated towards web accessibility in terms of how we interact with it is Twitter, because they were among the first to bring over the context of alternate captions or alt text. And these are steps that really help ensure that someone, like who who is differently able can use the internet properly. I think if in fact we talk about accessibility in terms of using digital gear. Has anyone noticed there's a little bump on your keyboards on the F and the J key? That is particularly an accessibility feature for someone who has sight impairments to be able to navigate across the keyboard at ease. So there we see examples of accessibility all across in our lives on a day-to-day basis. Some we might use, some we might not need to, but they make a substantial impact for sure. Coming to alt text particularly, when we talk about alt text is the written copy that appears in place of an image on a web page. And it particularly helps, and it's something that we might often notice when the image fails to load, right? Like if anyone here is a web developer and you've ever had to create an IMG tag in HTML, you might see along with the source field, there is always the alt field that comes up, and it's always recommended to fill it. That's where we place our alt text. And the biggest place where this text helps is with screen reading tools, because screen readers are particularly made to describe all contents of a web page. And aside from the text, this alt text helps screen readers describe images. And this helps people who may have visual or sight impairments, as well as allow search engines to better crawl. And yes, it does make a big difference with how your websites are ranked and how your websites are made available on search engines like Google and Bing as well. So alt text is definitely a very important feature. As I was mentioning earlier, Twitter was one of the first to bring this. But at this point, when it comes to websites and social media and so on, we do consider this a major standard, as we place these as well. That being said, I think we've all been in that position, right? Where if you have to write all text, you kind of get confused as to how to write all text, how to get, what to put in there. It does especially get a little tricky at times, right? Because when you've captured an image, it's difficult to come up with things at the moment. So I've myself faced that problem, and that's basically why the solution that I created for myself essentially was a little alt text generator, which would basically be an application that takes your image, describes what is there within it, and returns a little phrase back to you that you can place. Now, I will um, give a disclaimer before we kind of jump into this. When we talk about an alt text generator, especially one that is being created with these technologies that we have, it will give you a description of what is visible, of objects available, and so on. What these can't judge is context, because that is a particular question that comes up quite a lot, especially with this particular solution. Like, I think in the last 1 week, I've had to deal with this question at least 50 times. Not kidding. So I wanted to put this out beforehand, because right now judging context is still something that is more of a human activity, and it will need inputs from you afterwards. But what this will do is it will give you a start and give you at least a beginning description that could actually be termed complete in a lot of cases as well, accurate in a lot of cases, and then taking some more context from you, it will help you generate better alt text and make your content more accessible for people all across. Now, before we kind of jump into how I built it, it would be nice if you all could open the GitHub repository, because that this project here is essentially open source. It is something you can actually look through on your own, and we will be doing a code walkthrough as well to understand what I've basically done here. All right. So if anyone wants to open it up, I'm going to give a minute there. All right. Has everyone got the QR or the link, or do you still want a minute or so? Everyone okay? Okay. So I before jumping into the code, I will mention the major technologies that I've used with this one. The first one I've already mentioned, Azure, of course, and more specifically, I have used the computer vision service within Azure Cognitive Services, which is their suite of built AI models that can be consumed as REST APIs. That's what cognitive services is. And I've used the computer vision resource there specifically because that is the service that allows us to interact with images, extract information from them, and so on. All right. The second tool that I've used is Svelte, which is a relatively newer front end framework as compared to React or Vue or Angular. And I've used that with Vite, which is a bundling tool as well as a development server. So those are the technologies I've used with this particular application. Now, I think we should be good to look at the code. So let me go ahead. I'm going to go to the same GitHub repository I've shared with everyone here. And I guess we can go through now. Now, when you look at this repository, you will see a bit of a file structure here. We will see the public folder and the source folder. Now, this is the file structure that was created by Vite when I generated the template application along with it. For Svelte, that is one of the recommended ways to generate applications at the moment. So I went ahead with Vite and I did that. If you are creating a new application, that is something you might have to do. If you're just consuming this one or you want to clone it and try it out, you won't have to do that. You can just run an npm install and you should be good to go. And yes, once I did that, I got a little file structure. Within the source, the entry point for this particular application that has been set is the app.svelte file, right? Which gives us the most basic structure of this application if you've already had a look at it. And what I've done here, basically, I've just defined my initial header. I've defined my, a little tagline, and within that, I now have the other component that I've created, which will feature the image I want to check, the input file, the file import, and so on. So when you actually load this page, that's what it looks like. Mind you, I do have some amount of styling around it. Some was available by default, some I have customized more recently. But effectively, if you look at the structure of the app dot svelte file, that's what it is, right? And even if I take you further here into my Chrome developer tools, you will see that we've got the same h1, the same header, and the same paragraph as was available within the app.svelte. But particularly once we go beyond that, around where this input is, we will see more changes in usage as we go forward, because I do have some more logic implemented on that particular component. That component is available within the lib folder, where we do have another Svelte file. Now, Svelte files, by the way, are a file format created, of course, for the Svelte framework, which let you have some amount of HTML, JavaScript, and CSS within them. The handy thing, and this is one thing I particularly like about Svelte, by the way, is that the experience feels far closer to writing vanilla JavaScript. So it is a relatively less opinionated framework, which means getting started learning feels a little easier. And that's basically why I kind of built this application as well, is because I'm learning Svelte right now, and JavaScript as well. But yeah, so if I have to talk further about how I built this application, let's talk about this next major component that I created, which features this file input, which we saw already on the other tab. It has an image tag, which at the moment is not visible because I've kept the CSS to make sure it remains hidden unless it actually has an image present within it. Underneath that, there is a box where we will be featuring our alt text, which again is hidden for now because we don't have any input at the moment. And lastly, there will be a reset button so that you don't have to keep reloading the page every single time you want to check it again. Then, of course, we have some more styling. I won't enter that because styling, of course, can be customized to personal needs. I just wanted to keep something simple for now. Now, what we will see here is that once this file input sees a file being created, there is a little function, or rather here in this case, I have mentioned this as an API because I will be showing the API going forward. This, as soon as the file is inputted, will trigger a certain function. And what that will do is it will call another little function I've created that consumes the Azure service that I've built. And I will be taking you to the Azure portal as well and showing what service I have built and so on. But in the meantime, what this application will do is, within this folder, I have another little file, and here I am consuming essentially the Azure Computer Vision API the resource that I have created, and I'm doing that just through the REST API that is available. So it sends a post request to that with the image stream that I have available to get back the description of this particular image. And the way I've done that here is, if I simply go ahead and I search Azure Cognitive Services image analysis, now you will find some more information or description about it, what it does. In this case, particularly the image analysis service within the computer vision offering of Azure, what it does is it offers some services and a variety of offerings actually that let you get back information from images. In my case, I'm getting back the description of an image. And so what I've done here is I used the version 4.0, which is still in preview, to actually get back a description from this image. The API, by the way, is still available to you, so you can actually create a resource for that on your Azure account right now, it is very much possible. The only condition is that you will need to specify one of their listed regions, because this is a particular version of the API that is still in preview. So they have a list of regions available already. But so if you go to your Azure portal, you can actually go ahead and create these resources right now. All you need to do is that once you log in, you just need to go ahead, search up computer vision, and create a resource for yourself. In my case, I have one created already, so I won't repeat that, but it's a relatively simple process if I have to show you. Like, you need to add your subscription details, a name for your resource, a tier. Yeah, just one thing to make sure throughout this is that for this particular version of the API, you select only one of the specified regions which is within the Azure documentation. All right, I used East US in my case, so that was there. Within network, you can let it remain open to any public network, as long as, and once you take it to production, you can specify have a private net and so on. For testing purposes, that's okay. Identity we do not need, so that again you can reset, and once you've done that, you will have a resource available like this here, right? So you can get the keys and the endpoint available out of this particular tab on the resource. And yes, once that's done, in my case, what I did is I kept that within my environment variables. Now, Svelte is a front-end framework, of course, but because I'm using Vite, I can actually get environment variables out as well. Otherwise, if you've noticed, client-side JavaScript does not really support environment variables. That's particularly a feature you find within server-side tech. And for that matter, keeping secret variables on the front end doesn't really help. But again, this was a mini project, more of a weekend build. So and yeah, it's really something that is more of a side project, so I took the liberty of leveraging this little hack in the middle. But yes, we'd let you consume environment variables on the front end as well, so you can do that here. So yes, when I defined the logic for this particular overall function, what I did is, once it's triggered, the first thing that I'm doing is using, well, wait, I've gotten my endpoint and my API key available as variables here within this particular function, within this particular JavaScript file, and then I will take that into the function after this. I then defined a few more variables, actually constants here for particular, to leveraging DOM to get back those particular HTML tags that I had, because I will be manipulating them here as well. It is why I created a separate component here, is because we're going to be changing display, like CSS selector, the display selector, particularly for multiple of these HTML tags as we go forward. And one more check that I added was for image size, because right now the image limit that this particular API offers me is about 20.97 MB, which is honestly more than enough for most images that we have. So I just added an additional check for the image size. But yeah, beyond that, the next thing we did is that we're basically hitting this particular API and returning a certain response. One thing I've done here is actually make visible some of the HTML tags that I wanted, as well as show the image that I've actually uploaded on the screen, so that for your own convenience, you've got an image there, you want to see what image you've uploaded, and then you get the alt text for that, so that it makes sense in case you've actually uploaded a wrong file and you don't want to be confused about that. But yes, once the image is, once we've uploaded the image, we get a response back, and after that we just return the caption that we've gotten from the service, which is essentially a description of all the objects within the image. Now, considering that within the Svelte file that I'd shown earlier, we were basically calling this function here, the get caption function. We've got the response here, right? So as soon as that's done, we go back to the same Svelte file, and all it'll do is it will then just add that same caption to the alt text box that we had. So now, if I have to run this, I'm gonna go ahead. I am going to, yeah, let's just upload this file. I'm gonna upload this file here, and it will load the alt text for me. So I think that's a fairly accurate description of what this is. Now, of course, there's some more context if you look at the image. Maybe it's an office, maybe it's an event, right? But the thing is, when we look at these APIs, they can describe objects and tell them to you. What they can't give you is context, as I mentioned earlier. So, of course, when you do in the future go ahead and add more alt text, you will need some, if you want to add some context, that is something you will have to share on your own. But that being said, this is still a very valuable start because it does effectively give you a fairly accurate description of what is happening within the image. And for a lot of scenarios, that is a very, very good start to providing more alt text and making your content, your web pages, your social media a little more accessible for everyone. So in fairness, that's the application that we have. And I'm gonna lie, that's mostly what I wanted to talk about. Now, at this point, if you do want to try it out yourself, the application is deployed and available, so you can access it and try it out right now. This was there in the GitHub repository as well, by the way, but if you still want to check it out, that's the link. You can try it, try images that you might have clicked or so on. And, if you like it, give it a GitHub star. That's always, thank you. Thank you so much for that. That's always appreciated. But yeah, I mean, if you're doing that, that's about it for me. If you have any questions, I would love to hear them now.
Will it generate every time we generate the same image? Will it generate a new text?
So the question is that if every time you upload the same image, you'll get a new text, right? In fairness, what I'm going to do every single time is I am sending it to the same API. So ideally, you should get the same text back. But even if there are slight I don't believe there should be much variation. But if there are very slight variations, you can check them for accuracy once. And if it does give you something inaccurate, that is a concern. You can let me know because there is a way of feedback that we can provide to the team behind these services as well. But that being said, it should ideally provide you the same sort of feedback. Yeah.
Would it have been better with an extension rather than a web app?
Sorry?
Would it be better as an extension than a web app?
So your question is if it's better as an extension rather than a web app. The reason I thought about that actually, but the reason I didn't go about it that way is because you may not necessarily be using this in your laptop or computer. You could just be using this on your phone as well. And not every browser on the mobile provides an extension store. So yes, this can actually be extended and made separately as an extension as well. If you want to work on that, we can always talk more. But my primary reason for not keeping this as an extension was because it should be usable by mobile users as well. Do we have any other questions? Yeah.
Is it working on all the images or it has some limitations?
So the image types on which it works, right? It does support most conventional image types like your JPEGs, PNGs, and so on. Either way, that's actually a good point. I have there is a list of images that Azure's computer vision resource supports. I will actually do a better job of listing that, but most common image types are supported. Yes.
When we use image tags, we almost ignore that. So how did that come to your mind?
We have a habit of ignoring the alt category, right?
How did that come up to your mind that we should create this?
So the reason this idea came up to mind is because now that And I didn't come up about this idea from a web development angle. Rather, it came up to me from a social media angle, because in the capacity of a developer advocate, because I am interacting a lot on social media with people as well, we've been trying to build a habit where we make sure to add alt text within our content whenever we represent ourselves and our brand. And because I found that quite difficult to do at times, because sometimes the ideas just don't strike you. That's why I thought I might as well have a tool like this that can just give me a starting caption at the minimum.
What was the main motive, like to help web developers or to?
I mean, so I came from my own problem, right, where I wasn't able to think of alt text, but it really fits both angles, because I haven't used the best examples of alt text on my own portfolio website, so now I probably will. But the primary reason came from the angle of social media, because I do use that more than I build websites, if I'm honest. I have been more of a backend developer. This is something I'm still learning to do, but it's a very valid problem either way. And because it's a challenge I was constantly facing, I thought now that I am actually learning the tools for it, I might as well build something to help myself. And turns out there are actually quite a few more people who need this problem, because just before that, I've but this has been out since last weekend essentially, and so far, if I look at usage of this particular API for this instance, if I have to look at successful calls, basically successfully returned outputs, I'm just gonna set this to the last 30 days because that's gonna give me the total. But so far, it's had over 400 calls. So apparently, it's a much bigger problem, right? So we are seeing usage outside of it. So it fortunately fits in, regardless.
Let's go. Where? Okay, leave, man. I just sit there only. Alright. Okay, you guys.
Say hi to everybody.
Hi, everybody. I'm Vishwas Nair.
Thanks for being on time, Vishwas.
I was like, what are guys? Okay.
But yeah, that was basically it. I think I'm good with the presentations. By the way, in case anyone has further questions, we can talk later on. Oh, we'll take one last question and then, yeah.
Yeah, my question could be a bit dumb, but the question is how you make sure that nobody uploads the malicious EXE or malicious image on the content.
I believe the Azure APIs have some amount of safeguards placed in that. But that being said, do you really want descriptions of malicious images coming back to you? Is my question. Because all this is going to do is it's going to take an image and send you the alt text. So the thing is, this isn't exposing those images publicly anywhere, right? So yeah, that's my.
Just you can upload a malicious image and probably get a payload, a backdoor or something. That was the big concern.
That's actually a very good question. I believe Azure's APIs have safeguards for that at this point, because cognitive services, particularly because it's a computer vision tooling and because Microsoft has been working on a lot of responsible AI guidelines. So they do have methods to detect whenever you do have malicious. And in my understanding, not that I have tried this personally, you should ideally get an error response accordingly.
And possibly would Microsoft, would Azure work with OpenAI since they've got the stake in OpenAI?
Azure already has an OpenAI service. In fact, Vivek's going to be talking about that just after this. So for this particular service, my next eventual step is actually to replace the image analysis API of cognitive services with Azure's OpenAI service. The reason I haven't done that yet is because GPT-4 does not have an image input at the moment. I'm actually waiting for that to come out, but I have been playing around with Azure's OpenAI service, and once we see that, I probably will replace it because I have observed it to give more descriptive captions, which I think will be more valuable in this sort of a scenario. So that is a future plan, but it is pending because we're still waiting for GPT-4 to get image input.
I love testing it out.
Thank you. All right, then I guess that's it for me. If anyone wants to connect, that's my Twitter and my website, and I will give it over to Vivek now. Thank you. Me, where am I? Cool. How many of you need break? By the way, people who have joined online, we have in-person attendees as well, so they want break, but I'm not giving. You're lucky you're joined online, you can take a break, but yeah. How many of you want break? Seriously, nobody wants break. Wow. I mean, I definitely need a break. Okay. So just to get started, we have Microsoft Build. How many of you know what this Microsoft Build event is? Nobody knows? Oh, this is the right forum then. So this event is where we're going to talk about all the latest technology which is coming in, and what we are doing next and all those things. So one of the reasons why you need to, as a student, as a pro developer, as a startup, why you need to attend this kind of event is because you'll get to know what's next in technology world, right? So what's coming up and what are those new things which are coming in. That's where you're going to get it. So we have been flashing this link um, in the on the screen for online audience, and for in-person audience the link is aka.ms/build. So register. There are a bunch of sessions which is happening, there are a bunch of things which are going through, and just make sure you attend sessions accordingly. By the way, people who are online, you're able to hear me all good? Just put it in the comment if you're able to hear me. Just go to comments. Okay. Yeah, there are people who are saying yes. Good, they are able to hear me. Okay. So let's get started. I have some 40 slides. And no? Okay.
Okay, cool. So I'll just introduce myself. I'm Vivek. I started as a software developer, been in DevOps roles, done a couple of work as a co-founder, and also senior developer advocate at DigitalOcean. And this is my second role at Microsoft. Previously, I was leading the product marketing for developer audience, and currently I'm back in engineering, senior cloud advocate, being part of the cloud and AI engineering team. I also graduated 6 months back. Okay, cool. Um, these are my digital coordinates. If you want to get connected with me, this is the link. That's there. So today I'm going to talk about OpenAI. Somebody mentioned there is. How many of you know OpenAI? Everybody knows what is OpenAI. Then we can close the session. Huh? No? Yes? Yes? No? Close the session. You know OpenAI, huh? Okay. So today I'll just introduce you to OpenAI, and if you want to, really need to want to come here and try it out, do some, build some apps and other things. We do have a event on 19th May when you can come back here and build apps on OpenAI and Azure OpenAI. Okay, so you can try all of those things here on that day. But today, I'll just introduce you to some of the concepts, some of the things related to OpenAI, and I'll show you Azure OpenAI as well, how to get started with it and other things. Okay. So, what is AI? So, online audience, what is AI? Artificial intelligence. Huh? That's an abbreviation, huh? Okay. Cool. So it's basically nothing but machine imitating humans, right? It's basically when I say imitating humans, it's the capabilities of humans, not just imitating me like hi. No, it's basically the capability of humans, right? So basically, it is talking, making sense of data, and it is basically answering a couple of questions related to specific areas and other things. So that is what AI is all about. Are you able to hear me, as all of you? Right? Yeah. Cool. So that is what AI is, and what is machine learning? Training a machine. Okay. The art of training a machine with data, where it provides you with. Okay. Got it. Okay. I don't have much to give away now, so we'll restrict that answer now. But yeah, so basically, the art of training a machine with the data you have, and it's basically to build predictions, to solve complex problems and other things, right? That is how machine learning is. Basically, you're training a machine with your data, right? That is what machine learning is, and in a nutshell. So I'm not going to go in deep with all the algorithms and other things which is there, but this is how you train a model, right? So what it does is basically there are different kinds of flowers, and there is a classification of these flowers, and basically you're sharing that data with the machine, and then daily training it on the data and different set of data and different kinds of data. And basically at one point in time, it is if you show a flower to it, it basically identifies which classification it is, which type of flower it is, right? So that is how you train, and this is the model which you build. And once you build this model, what you do? You deploy. Correct? You deploy this model, and you can consume this model as an API. How many of you know what is an API? Correct. So basically, you are consuming those API, right? So there's a model, you build it, and you deploy it somewhere, and you consume it. That's all. Okay. Understood until now? There is artificial intelligence. We know what it is, and then there is a model. You build it. That is machine learning with your data. You train it, you keep it, and it gets trained, and you can deploy these models. Now, If you want to go deep dive, I have a link for you. If you want to learn machine learning and what it is and other things, there is a good content out there. So please go ahead and make a note of this, and you can go back and really understand different techniques, different things which is there, supervised, unsupervised, reinforcement, and all different types of things which are there. Right? You can learn from this link, and there's one more link which I'm sharing, which is about algorithms. So there is a way to train it, right? There is an algorithm to train. There are different scenarios, different tasks which you want to drive through this data, and to train it, you're going to use different things, right? So basically, this is what this link is all about: understanding different algorithms. Go back and learn about it. And this is interesting one. This I usually share. So what are those different types of algorithms which are there, and in which situation you need to apply different set of algorithms? So this is an interesting cheat sheet. So you can also go back and learn through this as well, because it is talking about, if you have recommendation, what are those algorithms you're going to apply. If you have classification, what are those algorithms you're going to apply. If you have different set of things, what are those algorithms you're going to apply. So basically, this is giving you all the idea. So until now, we understood what is artificial intelligence is. Machine learning is nothing but you have data and you're training it, and it is used for making decisions and predictions and other things. What is deep learning? Basically, you have bunch of different unstructured data, and you're basically training through that data, and also it is also self-training itself. Machine learning is you giving the data every time and training it, but here it is also self-training it, and reinforcement learning is what we say. So it's self-training and processing the data and making decisions on its own, right? So that is what deep learning is. So what is generative AI? This is where OpenAI is. It's a generative AI. So what is it? Correct. So basically, it creates a new written audio or image and anything from the input you give, which is called as prompts, which we are going to discuss. But it is called as prompts. When you provide that input, it provides an output for it, and it creates. It's basically a large-scale autocomplete, right? So basically, you say tell something, it autocompletes what you want. Say, for example, I say, I love pani puri as a snack. So it completes that snacks, right? So that is what it does. So anyways, we'll go through that, but this is what it is. So traditionally, how model development used to happen, right? We all know about model now. What is a model? We all know that. How it used to happen is basically you have a specific data for solving specific tasks. Say, for example, you want looking at solving entity problem, then you have specific entity data. If you're trying to solve sentiment analysis problem, you have sentiment analysis data. So these are all silos, right? Data is silo, and you're training separately, and it is solving specific task. It is doing specific task. Now, doing that for multiple things is obviously cost. Training time is there is cost is there, managing is different, and all those things. So this was the traditional way of doing it. So right now, how things are happening is basically you have unstructured data, and you're taking the data using as a foundational model, and it is basically the foundation model is basically training on the unstructured data, and it is basically able to connect between the different set of data and transform model, basically that is solving that problem, and any task which is required to be solved is able to do it through this. So basically, you take, I want to take sentiment analysis. It is already trained on all of these things. So it is able to connect between different set of data and make another analysis, and then provide answers to you. So that's what foundation model. So you understood the difference, right? Previously, we used to separately train the things for specific task. Now there is a task, you can drive any task. You have a data which is very unstructured data. you're training the model, which is this transformer model and foundational model. Using that different model, you're training it and you're adapting it. So obviously that is where your adaptation comes into picture. Again, to do this, it's costly, but scalability is always is there, right? So that's what it is. So couple of things, concepts around OpenAI and what they offer. So we'll deep dive into that. Before I deep dive, you can see here. So ultimately, what OpenAI is basically they are giving you models. Okay, we did talk about AI. We did talk about how to build a model, how it is trained. You deploy that model. So they are providing you these models for you to consume. So there are a couple of models which they have. What are those modules? GPT-4, which can do everything, which is the foundational model, which is there. It is not doing a specific task. It is driving it is if you want to do sentiment analysis, it will do you for you. If you want to create image, it will create image. So that's what it is. And GPT 3.4, apart from image, it does everything else. So that's what it has. And DALI is more from image perspective. Whisper is more from audio perspective. And embedding is there are a couple of models within the embedding, which is to solve for sorting based on rank, which is to get clustering. So basically, trying to understand some of the search related stuff and all those things. So for that, you use embedding. Moderation is basically to moderate your content, where if it is a sensitive data and other things, which is there, the unsafe output and all those things to moderate. It is solving the specific thing, right? And codex is basically to generate code and other things and to do stuff. So ultimately, just try to understand this. OpenAI is basically nothing but there are models which are available for you, and these models should be consumed. If you are solving for specific areas, you consume specific models, and if you are really looking at large thing like chat and other things, you're going to use the GPT and other things which can solve larger problems, right? So this is what OpenAI is all about. Okay. So, so somebody mentioned generative AI is the OpenAI specifically is nothing but prompts, right? If you see these prompts, there are prompts which are there, and there is a output for each of these prompts. So it's basically who will do better Google search, right? Right. So if you ask the right question, you can build right answers to it. So obviously we'll talk about your own data and other things, but this is a general model which is available for you. And what you can do is obviously you can ask for taglines. You can work on the the SQL query which is been giving images and other things. So basically, ultimately, the way you provide the prompt and the way you structure the prompt output, say you might ask, can you give me an output in JSON format? Can you give me an output in this specific format? So it picks in that format and gives you the answers, right? So that's what prompt engineering is all about as well. So all of you might have heard about prompt engineering. There's new thing which is going on, right? Prompt engineering, that's all it's about. So who trying to get good information out of that model is what prompt engineering. So if you keep trying, you will know, right, what to give. So we'll go through a demo. I'll show you some demos, and we'll also talk about a couple of concepts which are there, in OpenAI, before I deep dive into demos. So when you start learning something, what will you start with? Huh? Correct. So that's been my thing as well. So whenever I start something, whenever I start learning something new, I first go to their documentation. It has backfired also, but sometimes you have to trust documentation, right? So that's how it is. So okay, so we did talk about prompt, so I'm not going to the prompt and what it is, but we'll go through the quick start. So you can see this. All of you can see this? Okay. So if you see here, there is something called as prompt, right? So it is asking is write a tagline for ice cream shop, and you can see that there is a completion. So that is the word they use. It's kind of a terminology for completion. So whenever you give something in the prompt, it basically completes the sentence, right? That is what it means. It basically completes the task, right? That is what the meaning is. And it's, as you can see, it is nothing but a advanced auto complete. That's it. So it takes in something and it generates a new thing out of the data. That is what generative AI is. Okay, understood? So that's what this is. So basically, if you suggest one name for a horse, it does suggest one name for the horse. Okay, right? Now if you go here and say suggest one name for a black horse, it does suggest one name for the black horse, right? Now there is three names you are asking. It is giving you three names, right? So that is what it is. Now I'll come to very interesting part. Can somebody tell me what this is? Sorry, anybody? So this is what prompt engineering is. You're giving a format. You're giving a format that in this format is what I'm looking for, and it gives you the name. I'm looking for horse, animal as a horse as an input. The names is coming at the bottom, and it is in the format of what you have provided to it. Right? Got it? So that is what prompt engineering is. How you want the data to be outputted, and what kind of format you're looking for, and what you're looking for. Right? You have to be very precise and very to get the right set of answers. And most important thing about this in OpenAI is the temperature. Okay. So what is the temperature? Temperature is basically if you give 0, it will not go and try new things. It will go for the right set of prediction and the highest number of percentage of the prediction. It takes that. It will not try new things. If you give 1, it means it can go and try new things and it will bring in new answers and all those things. 0, it means it is going for the accuracy. Right? When you build a model, when you deploy a model, you keep trying for better accuracy, right? 0 means good accuracy. 1 means try to see if there are different set of things. That is the meaning of temperature. Okay, that's what it is. And we will see that as well. So the other concept in OpenAI is tokens. Okay, so you would have seen in OpenAI pricing model and all, it's based on tokens and other things. So you will not win, right? So the based on tokens and other things, right? So this is it breaks each and every word you give as a prompt. It breaks it into tokens, and then it makes sense, or it take that input, how the token is, and then takes in an input and then provides an output. Okay, so that is what OpenAI is doing. Simple, it's breaking it into a token. And if you see this, it is basically completing the sentence. Horse are my favorite what animals, animal, whatever. You can even try this. Samosa is my, did I give right answer? What? Favorite snack? Food. Correct? Next line. Because I gave next line. Huh? Let's see. Now. See? Because I gave space. It took next line. But yeah, that's good. But anyways, if you see this, this is how it was working. Correct? So it is looking for accuracy. And you can see there is an accuracy it is looking at and providing you the answer. So here is temperature, how temperature works. When it is 0, it is always picking animal. It is not risking anything. Correct? Horse is my favorite animal, 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 animal. Each 4 times you give this, it provides you with the same thing. The moment you change it to 1, there are different things it tries. Animal, animals, and maybe some character it is trying. right? So that is what the difference between the 0 and 1 in the temperature. Okay, so let us build one simple application. So it's there here. I'll not, you know, not do something which is not there here, because I want you to go back and try the same thing, and come back and tell us how do you feel. So I already have the code. I already have the API. So you can create APIs. So I'll show you how you can create. So you can go create new secrets. You can create a new secret and start using the APIs. It's pretty easy, all right? And I'll show you how. So you can see the code. Everybody can see the code. You can see or not see? See? I know you want break. Give me 10 minutes. We'll go for a break. Okay. So cool. There is import OS, import OpenAI. This is the module which I have installed. Okay. So I'm using this module, and I have the OpenAI keys. And if you look at this is the most important thing. I'm calling the API, right? So I'm calling the API with completion as one of the API which I'm calling, and I'm using a model which we discussed, right? The GPT models and other things. There are a couple of models. Text Davinci is one of the model, and one of the prompt is animal, and temperature is 0.6. It can be 0.6, 0.5 in middle, no worries. Okay, so temperature can be in between 0 and 1. You can go back and use, right? So ultimately, what is this? What is this? Prompt. This is prompt engineering. Now we have to use right set of words. Okay, this is prompt, and this is the format which we are looking at, and we want to output in this format, right? So that is what this means. Okay, so it's very easy to develop something with the code. All I am having is a simple HTML file, index file, which is index.html, and I'm calling something, and I'm getting this output. And where is the app? Here is the app which is taking that request and passing that request and passing the request back to the HTML to show. That's all. So we'll just see that just for the demo purpose. Plus run port. So you can see that it is running in my local. So I'll just show you this. Hopefully run. So we can say anything, dog, generate name for my pet. So any animal name I give, and it generates um, some name. Okay, so it's in the same format which I give. If you see the output, same format which we had given in the prompt, right? So this is a simple way to build it and simple way to consume the API. It's very easy. So there's nothing big about it. It's just a simple code in Python. I'm just consuming it. You can write in whichever language you want to write, and try and consume it. Okay. Before I go next, so you need to deploy this in production. When you deploy this in production, there are challenges to deploy this. Obviously, you need to make sure you need to have billing, you need to have this and other things to be taken care. So that is one thing which is very difficult to manage, right? So that's one of the things. So here is the playground, and just it already have the example here. This is the playground. How many of you have used this playground before? Some of you. Some of you have used. Some of you are sleeping, I know. And some of you are talking to each other. Yeah. So this is a playground. It's easy to use. Just go there, go create your account in OpenAI. You can select different mode. actually. This is a completion, there is a chat, there's insert, and all these are different models. It supports different models. If you go to chat, it has different model. If you go to complete, it has different set of models, right? All these are having different models. So if I'm using this, and there is obviously temperature and other things which is there, max length is number of prompts and other things. So there are a bunch of things which you can provide here. And here I'm trying to say, this is the format I want from this particular whatever text which I have provided. I need to summarize and I need to get this format. These are the information I need to pick from this particular data. So then I submit. It basically provides you with fruit names, which has been noted here, which is the color of that fruit names and flavor of that fruit name. If you read this whole text, basically you can figure out all these things have been provided, but it picks all those things and creates it in the format. You can also say I want this in a JSON format, and it will create it in a JSON format. So that is how these models are working, right? So that's one of the things. And there are a couple of things which I want to just run through. You can obviously go back and fine tune it. So when I say fine tune it, fine tuning, it's basically you bring in your own data, and on top of this base model, you can add your data and train the model. Okay. Once you train the model, you deploy that model, and once you deploy that model, you can consume your own prompts. Basically, for your own data, you can create your own prompts, because that is the real use case of OpenAI, right? Because basically there are a bunch of scenarios where there is a healthcare scenario. There are different set of scenarios where you want your own data to be trained on top of this, and then prompt and weights has to be put into that. How to get your own prompt to be answered is basically adding weights to your prompts, okay, while you're training. Okay, that is one of the things. Okay, I'll not go in depth with all of these things, but that is how you can play and other things, do stuff. So what is OpenAI and Microsoft doing? So basically we have brought in something called as Azure OpenAI service. So what we provide is all those models are being packaged as a service with Azure. There are advantages of using it. And obviously all of these things can be custom tunable. As I told you, fine tuning is possible with the Azure OpenAI service. The most important thing about the Azure OpenAI service, where it sits and how to consume it. Basically it sits in our cognitive service landscape. These are all Azure AI products which we have, which is like ML platform we have for people who want to build their own models and want to use their own models. There's ML ops which is there, and data scientist in a box is where you're going to use Azure machine learning. There is cognitive services which I know Aditya also showed you one of the service which is like already pre-trained models available for you to consume it. And also there is on top of that you can also do the custom as well. And there are scenario based applied AIs offer to bring it into your application, which is bot surveys and cognitive search and form recognizers. So form recognizer is basically to capture data from the forms and other things. And obviously we have at the top layer the Power BI and AI builders, which is part of the Power Platform. This is for business use cases to view and build analytics and other stuff. And we have applications in Dynamic 365 and stuff. So obviously OpenAI is built on responsible AI. I think Aditya also mentioned this. There is something called as responsible AI. There are 6 principles, and these are the 6 principles of responsible AI. A lot of things we build we apply this principles into the AI which we are building. There was a question somebody asked here, right, on if I post something and does it provide with a different kind of data and other things. That's where the backend will try and mitigate all of these kind of stuff. So that's where Azure OpenAI service come into picture. The first thing, if you note here, is basically it detects the harmful use of these AI models. and it obviously keep checking on what's happening at the backend. And then there is role-based access and network access for your models. So there is somebody needs to control this role access, right? Otherwise, your model is out there, which is being trained, and people can go back and use it for all the wrong users use, right? So basically, that's the reason why it has to be very well protected. So that's why role-based access is there in network. Putting it in a private network and using it in a private network is very important. That is what Azure OpenAI provides you with. There are models which is being provided by OpenAI. Azure OpenAI provides on top of that. It provides you with all of these things, which is role-based access, with detecting harmful stuff, and obviously you can custom it to your own data and other things, and also integrations with a lot of services which we have, right? So there is bunch of services which we have which you can make use of, right? So that is one of the thing. Okay, so ultimately what happens in Azure OpenAI services, we provide you with all the models which has been provided by OpenAI, and on top of that you add your own data. You have your own data, and on top of that you use your own prompts. That's it, right? So your own prompts, your own data, and then there is OpenAI based models which is there. So that is the differentiator, right? So you can build on top of this. So that is what you do. So one of the example which I just want to show you is how this works. Think that this is the prompt, that you are trying to extract mail address from this email, and you have given the data and you are trying to extract mailing address, right? So this is the prompt, right? This is the prompt, which is some text input, and you are expecting some output from this, and this is the completion you're looking at, right? This is the completion you're looking at because you're looking at mailing address information, and this is the tokens which we talked about. So basically um, each and every word in that is broken down into different tokens and then simplified into processing it, and it processes it and produces the completion. Okay, got it? So that's all it does. It's pretty easy to understand. And how do you build something like this? Is basically you start with simple prompt and simple things and see whether it is solving your task. If not, go back and refine it. If not, it is you're refining things with it, and then you're optimizing it to be used for your own task. So you're just it's a classic development, right? You develop something, a web app, you keep reiterating on it, trying to better it. If you see Aditya's talk, right, he built first version of it, UI was really bad, now he has bettered it, right? Now he's going for the next best thing. So that is how it does. Now he told that I'm going to move this to OpenAI instead of using cognitive. That's how classic development works, and that's how this whole thing works as well. So you keep ideating, you keep refining it, you keep going and optimizing it. So that's what you do, and these are some couple of examples. So basically this is a call center conversation, and it picks up what's happening in that conversation. So it's very simple to bring that output. I did talk about giving out a JSON format output. This is one of the example. I give an input for the data and ask JSON format output in the data. So that's what it is. There is a demo, but I'll show a demo in here only. So I've already created Azure OpenAI service, and so once you create, it's pretty easy to create. Let me show you. Create resource and go to cognitive services. I told you, right? It falls under cognitive services in that whole schema of things. Sorry, I'll go open this. Okay. So now you can see there is Azure OpenAI. You need to get an access for this. You need to get an access for this. So go back and get an access and try all of these things. Once you click on this, you just provide all the information here and just create next, and you'll get to deployments. You'll get to this my all resource that is already there. You'll get to this page. Once you get to this page, what you do, Once you get to this page, go and explore. Once you explore, a studio will open for you like this, right? There is Azure OpenAI Studio will open, and in that you deploy model. What is the model you create? Here is all the list of models which is available. Okay, these are the models which is available. All you need to do is to choose one of the base model and create your own new model on top of that if you have new data, or else you start using the same model, right? So this is how you do it. Once you create all these models, you go for the completion. You use some example. Which example will go? Some example will pick generate product name ideas. So I am giving a format, right? If you see, I'm generating a product name ideas, and this is the format I want to see. And maybe this idea is about wearable health device, and I'm trying to get a name from this name to build a name for this product, right? So I'm already giving the way I want this output to be, right? So if you see this, I'll go and click on this. So it just creates some names for me, right? So that's what completion is all about. You provide input, it completes. That's it. Simple. You are using a model. Which model I'm using? I deployed what? DaVinci model. So one of the model when I deployed, I choose which model I want, and I'm using that model. Correct. So now I got this output. So there are obviously bunch of parameters which you can set. The maximum number of tokens you want, and temperature, and what is the probability, and streaming of this. Stream several data and give me the best possible data out of that is what some of the things you can best of this. So there are a bunch of things which you can set and use it. So these are the models which is available. This is where you go and deploy it. And you can also note that completion, if I click on this view code is also available for you. So you don't have to do anything. The code is also available to consume what you were looking for. So you don't have to build anything. So you just have to see which is the right prompt to give, and then use this code, and just put the OpenAI keys which you're going to generate. The keys are available. If you go to the system here, there is key, and if you go to this keys, there are keys here. Use that key, and that's how you do it. So anyways, this is done. And file management, if I go here, I can upload the new data set. So you can see here, so I can upload data set. So there is a way to build a data set, create prompt, and what should be the completion, create prompt, completion. So there is a bunch of data set you can build and upload it. And when you upload, this is a simple way to upload. And you can also go back and create a new deployment. To add that into this, right? So I'm not able to deploy a new model. Create a customized model. So this is a customized model which you can go and do it. So it is not currently available for my region which I have chosen, but you can choose different region here. That's how you can go and create a new model based on your data, right? You can upload the data, train the data, validate it, and use it. Okay, that's what Azure OpenAI is all about, and you can try it out. So go back and get an access to this and try all of these things and see what you can build. And if you want to build something, you can come here on 19th May. We are going to build something. Everybody, whoever comes here, will have to build something. So that's what we do, and we just sit here and have fun and building new apps and other things. So you can come here on 19th, and we can build something new. Okay, so I'll go back to my slide. Oh, this will start off. Okay, so here is a link where I have added all these learnings together, and it is part of the collection. So you can go back and use this particular link as collections, and you can go back and try it out. I mean, read through it, do a lot of things. On top of that, there are a bunch of code samples which is there. You can try all of those things there, right? So this is one of the link, and this is Cloud Skill Challenge. All the things which Tulika talked about, which Aditya talked about, and what I am talking about, all of these things is added as a Cloud Skill Challenge. So you can go back and participate in the challenge and complete those learnings on your own. That's a simple challenge which is available for next 42 days. So you can spend time every week, every day, 1 hour on this and learn all the 7 modules which is part of this challenge. Okay, so that's one of the link. Okay, there are a bunch of links which I just wanted to share. A bunch of things which is happening from a student perspective. There is Student Hub. If you are a student and if you're looking to learn something new and other things, some programs which is run for students. So go back and try this hub link which I have provided. And there are a couple of videos, on-demand videos from a last student summit and other things which is there. So go back and check it out. And then there is specifically for student summit, we did run Cloud Skill Challenge. So there are a bunch of modules which was there specifically for different streams. If you're looking for no code, low code, if you're looking for ML, AI, there are separate set of Cloud Skill challenges which we have. And lastly, there is a product feedback. So if you're using any of these Azure services, not just Azure OpenAI, the app surveys, the static web apps, Azure Functions, which was shared today. Any of these services you're using, just make sure you provide the product feedback to us, right? So again, I'll just hold on to the build link. But any questions? Yeah. Just 1 second now. I'm just waiting for questions from the. I'll answer your question. I'll first answer the online audience, and then I'll come back to in person. Yeah. So, any questions from online audience? Okay, perfect. There is one. Such query mostly, but no, this comes sometimes exit character again. Responses on this scale. Saving all this massive data. This is not a concern. It's not a concern. Anyways, cool. Yeah. So before we go to your question, maybe we can close the online session. If you have any questions, online audience, just okay. There is one question, guys. Just give me 2 minutes. There is one question. Can you bring that up? How do we handle sensitive data when using these models? So you can add these models onto storages. So basically different storage, blob storage and other storages in the private network. So as I mentioned, Azure provides private network, right? There is a support for private network. And once you see that, it's basically available. So you can use it in private network and enable those models there. Okay. Okay, cool. So there are no questions coming in online. So I am just closing it. Thank you for people who have joined online. Thank you very much.